Joined by Florida Senator Marco Rubio. We are now 8 days out until the Iowa caucus. Senator, thank you so much for making time.
My pleasure.
And stopping by here in KCRG TV9 Cedar Rapids. This is a good day for your campaign. Coming off the endorsement last night from the Des Moines Register. We may be in this era of declining influence from newspapers, but this still carries some weight here in Iowa politics. And they said in the editorial, quote, that you displayed an impressive grasp of public policy detail, reeling off 4-point plans on foreign policy and other issues. So does this endorsement kind of hit a sweet spot for where you're looking to hit within the Republican field here in Iowa?
Well, first, I mean, my campaign's always been a serious campaign because the issues we face are very serious issues. And from my view, the next president of the United States is going to not just have to undo all the damage that Barack Obama has done to America, but the next president also has to be someone that will allow us, this nation, to fully grasp its opportunities. Despite all of our problems, I think we have a chance to make the 21st century the greatest era in our history. And so that's why we're excited about the endorsement. It recognized that. It also recognized that not only do we give the Republican Party the best chance to win, I'll beat Hillary Clinton, but I think it gives us the best chance to grow the conservative movement, to convince more people than ever that conservatism is the right approach for our government, for our country.
We'll touch on Republican brand here in a minute, really the future when we look at this. On taxes here in Iowa, we're a state with relatively low poverty rates, but you don't need 6 figures to live well in Iowa. And here in Cedar Rapids, median family income is about $63,000. Under a Rubio presidency, assuming you had a friendly Congress in place, I understand you're calling for 2 tax rates. Could you explain a little bit more on
Well,
this?
someone making what you just said would probably be paying 15% on which is significantly lower than today. But in addition, they're going to have an increase in the per-child tax credit.
Okay.
So working families are going to have an additional up to $2,500 tax credit refundable per child, which is allowing them to keep more of their own money, so they can help with the cost of raising kids. The other thing that we're doing, which I think will be very impactful, is there are many people in Iowa and across the country whose income is earned from the company they own, and it's a small business. It's a partnership or an S corporation. Today, you pay those rates on your personal rate, which could be as high as $39.5. On my plan, all business income, no matter how big or small you are as a company, you will not pay any more than 25% flat on your income. So that's going to help a lot of people as well.
On an opening statement, you talked about undoing what we're seeing with the current administration. With many of the Republican candidates, you've talked about repealing the Affordable Care Act. How exactly can you do this if you're president in a Senate if you don't have 60 Republicans or at least 60 supporters on this? Is there a process for
Sure.
this?
Well, first, when I'm president, on my first day in office, I'm going to undo and I'm going to repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. So these assaults on the Second Amendment, these ridiculous EPA rules that have put agriculture and business across this country in danger, all of these are gone on my first day in office. By the way, we're not going to be sending money overseas anymore to fund abortions as we're doing under this president now. And on my first day in office, I'm going to cancel this ridiculous deal with Iran. And then we're going to have to work with Congress to do things like tax reform and regulatory reform and saving Social Security and Medicare and fully utilizing our energy resources. But there is a lot a president can do because this president has unilaterally, through executive order, done a lot of damage. We're getting rid of those executive orders.
On Social Security, you may have noticed throughout your campaigning across our 99 counties, we have plenty of older folks here in Iowa, and Social Security is a prime subject for here. Your campaign said you would gradually bump up the retirement age for future retirees, but make no changes for those in or near retirement, and also defend Medicare and Medicare Advantage for current seniors. What in your world would be a future retiree? Is there an age range right now?
Yeah, people my age, people my children's age, you know, 54 years of age or younger, people that are more than 10 years away from retirement. And the changes we contemplate for younger Americans are not unreasonable. Right now, I'm scheduled under current law to retire at 67. I'll have to retire at 68. If I've made a lot of money, my Social Security benefits are not going to grow as fast as they do for someone who made less money. And Medicare, for me, could very well be the option of taking my Medicare money and using it to buy a private plan that I like better. These are very reasonable changes for future generations, and if we make them now, we don't have to disrupt the programs for people that are on it now, like my mother, who's 85 years old, and I don't want anything disruptive to happen to her. But we can save these programs for future generations and in the process help bring our debt under control.
Note on immigration. This is a hot topic on the Republican side. I imagine this is personal to you, with your parents coming here from Cuba in 1956, truly working their way up in American society. So what do you think needs to be done on immigration right now? What would you handle first on this?
Well, no one running for president understands it better than I do because I've lived it. My father, my mother, my grandparents were all immigrants. My wife's entire family are immigrants. And I grew up and still live in an immigrant community. The first thing I'd say is that now immigration, the #1 issue, first and foremost, before anything else, is keeping ISIS out of America. When I'm president, if we do not know who you are or why you are coming, you are not getting into the United States. Number two is we have to secure our borders. And this is not a newfound position. I've been pushing for this now for most of my time in the Senate. The hiring of 20,000 new border agents, completing the 700 miles of walls and fencing, an entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays, E-Verify, mandatory E-Verify. We're not going to have amnesty. I do not support amnesty. I do not. And I believe that if you have violated our laws, you have to face significant consequences. So, for example, a criminal alien will be immediately deported. And sanctuary cities, by the way, are going to lose their federal money when I'm president.
Time in Congress, since you were elected during the Republican wave of 2010, one thing that has come up, and we see all the campaign ads, some positive, some attack ads. The only major negative branding I've seen of Marco Rubio is on missed votes, about 13%. And this comes as we've had stories this week about Senator Charles Grassley, longtime senator here from Iowa, has not missed a vote since '93, and that was because of the flood. I imagine this is something you anticipated coming up at some point for the 2016 campaign. How do you answer back to those who say that you've missed too many votes?
Well, first of all, my overall record in the Senate is close to 90%. And even this week, when a major issue or something I can make a difference on, I'm going to be there. And so we're going to continue to do that. But I chose to run for president and to be out here campaigning in Iowa and in New Hampshire and in other places because I recognize that after the damage Barack Obama has done, it's going to take a good president, to undo the damage done by a bad president. And so that's why I chose not to run for re-election to the Senate and instead pursue the presidency. I'm not trying to hold on to two government jobs at the same time here. And it's because this nation needs a new president that will help turn this around. And if I'm the Republican nominee, we will beat Hillary Clinton. I will defeat her, and we will turn this country around.
Looking on the Republican brand, when I see the debates, we see all the ads coming in. There's a lot of bravado in the race among many of the candidates, from ISIS to immigration to repealing order after order. Do you think the stronger approach, though, is hurting the Republican brand with some who might be in the middle, who might not be as politically active or watching the headlines every day?
No, I don't believe so. I think the majority of Americans believe in limited government, in free enterprise, and in a strong national defense. The vast majority of Americans believe the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest military in the world. The majority of Americans believe that ISIS needs to be confronted and defeated and that the president is not doing a good enough job. The majority of Americans believe that economic growth is a product of the private sector, not of government. That's why they support lower taxes and less spending. And the majority of Americans believe that the president should not govern as a king through fiat and executive orders, that they believe in the Constitution. These are mainstream positions. The people who are out of touch here are people like Bernie Sanders, who's an avowed democratic socialist. He doesn't hide that. I think he should run for president of Sweden or some other country with economies that he seems to enjoy. We want to be America. It is the Democratic Party who has gone way off the scale, far to the left, espousing openly socialist policies that perhaps are appropriate for Europe, but they don't work here. We don't want them here. We want to be America.
You've talked about being able to defeat former Secretary of State Clinton in a general election. How can you win a general election in November of 2016? How can you reach out to the voters that maybe did not show up for the Republicans in 2012, 2008?
Well, if you look at it, every poll consistently shows that I beat Hillary Clinton, and not just nationally, but in key states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, New Hampshire, and so forth. And we feel very positive about that. And the reason is this. Number one, I give the Republican Party the best chance to unify this party after this nomination fight is over. We will unify the Republican Party, and we will create new conservatives. We are going to go out and campaign to people that have not heard from the Republican Party in a long time. I'm the only candidate as a Republican that talks consistently about the student loan debt in this country, because I had a student loan not that long ago. I talk about the plight of single women raising children on their own who are stuck in low-wage jobs. I talk about the need for more vocational training and blue-collar workers, which today are excellent jobs as welders and pipe fitters and airplane mechanics, and we don't teach enough people to do that work. And so I believe I give the Republican Party the best chance not just to come together, but to reach out and convince more people than ever that conservatism is what this country needs now, not big government, and certainly not socialism.
In this rather large Republican field, you've been polling a consistent third in Iowa since about mid-November, and Donald Trump and Ted Cruz have been 1-2 in this. What part of the Republican base in Iowa do you need to reach that they currently have between now and February 1st?
I mean, all of it. Our campaign is not geared towards one group or another. Our goal is to unite the Republican Party, which more than often than not is a limited government, free enterprise party with some diversity of opinions on some ideas. But by and large, we're unified behind the belief that the federal government should be limited and our military should be strong. And that's what I'm running on. And I feel great about the momentum here in Iowa. You know, polls in Iowa, you've covered these now for a while. They very rarely are predictive of the final outcome. Iowa always seems to deliver a surprise. And I can just tell you, as we go out there, our events are getting bigger. The people signing up are increasing rapidly. The volunteer force is growing. We just feel really good about our momentum here. We feel very positive over the next 8 days about how this is going to turn out.
Anyone who's running for president is in this to win this. If not first place next week, is there a strong showing as you head into New Hampshire or South Carolina that you can go with?
You know, I'm not a political pundit, so I'll leave that for the pundits. We want to do as well as we possibly can. And we understand that the nomination will not be decided in Iowa, but it will begin to be decided here. This is the first state in the country that will get to pronounce itself. In the end, my goal, and we have to keep our eye on what the goal is to have more than half the delegates to the convention be pledged to me. That's what we're working on. That's what I believe we're going to achieve, and then we'll go in November and beat Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. But Iowa's a big part of that, and we ask everyone for their vote because we want to do as well as possible here.
Let's get you out of here. I know you have a busy day of campaigning, but one personal story, a question for you. Has there been a moment while you've been campaigning in Iowa that has touched your heart? Because all the time it's spent away from family, all the time shaking hands in the diners. Has there been one moment that this is worth it for me? Well,
there's been a few. You know, earlier this week, I had a gentleman who was an atheist ask me a question about my faith, and it gave me an opportunity. Actually, he said, "Are you running for commander-in-chief or pastor-in-chief?" And he didn't mean it disrespectfully, but it gave me a chance to respectfully share my faith, not just with him, but with the people there. And anytime I have a chance to do that is important. And then last night I had a young woman, a mother, who said she had driven a considerable distance to be there tonight because she's worried about her kids. And she wanted to know what she could tell her kids, why I was running for president. And I explained that I'm running for president not just for her kids, but for mine. I have 4 children. They're 15, 13, 10, and 8. And I want them to inherit a country as great or greater than the one my parents left for me. That's why I'm running for president, and it reminds me of why we're doing this. It's not about the pundits, the polls, or the back and forth of the campaigns. It is about the people watching this interview who are not just worried about themselves, they are frightened of what kind of country and world their children are going to inherit. And as president, I will work hard every day to ensure that we are safer and more prosperous than we've ever been.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio, thank you so much for joining us here on KCRG TV 9. We do respect your time and safe travels along the journey.